Well, welcome to our podcast today. We're having a special service this Sunday with the Aspen Jewish congregation, which shares the building that we have at Aspen Chapel with the Aspen Chapel congregation. We've come together to do a special service for Thanksgiving today. And the theme is one of gratitude, but also a service tinged with sadness, as today we have the news of the attacks in Paris yesterday, which very much coloured a lot of the service. I do an introduction at the beginning of this podcast, and then you'll hear David Segal give the message. And then after that, a number of our children went up to the homeless shelter in Aspen and helped with the cooking of the food, and they will speak a bit at the end. So here we are, our service for today.
Good morning. This is a reading from Genesis 27. When Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me too, my father." But Isaac said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? He's deceived me these 2 times. He took my birthright and now he's taken my blessing." Then he asked, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, "I've made him lord over you and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what possibly can I do for you, my son?" Esau said to Isaac, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father." Then Esau wept aloud. His father Isaac answered him, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck."
Today is about gratitude, and today I am grateful for hope. Let me back up a little bit. I'll come back to that theme. A few years ago, Greg Anderson and I went to speak to the 7th grade at the Aspen Middle School. You remember Greg, right? You know who he is? Okay. They were beginning their unit on world history and world religion, and they asked us to come and present on Judaism and Christianity in about 10 minutes each. So we thought we'll try. And we did try, and we each gave our little spiel. And Greg, as you know, gave a lot of emphasis on the fact that Jesus was Jewish, and he made a point to explain that. And then during the Q&A, one of the girls in 7th grade raised her hand and asked, and I could see the gears turning in her head as she asked, "So if Jesus was Jewish, then why did the Jews kill him?" And my heart sank a bit in that moment. Greg actually did a very good job of explaining to her that it has to do with there were some Jews allied with the Romans. Won't get into that's a whole other lecture. But on the other hand, I was glad she asked. She had heard it somewhere, and at least she asked, and that could be cleared up in a sense. My heart sank because I thought we had settled that one. And what I mean by that is we're 50 years now celebrating the 50th anniversary of a very important document in Jewish-Christian relations called Nostra Aetate, which if you don't know what it is, I encourage you to go and read the whole thing online. But to give you the 1-minute version, the Catholic Church in 1965, as part of the Vatican II reforms, issued a statement about the church and other faiths. And central for our purposes was the statement about Judaism. Actually, there are several statements about Judaism. One of the things they said is we reject the teaching of contempt that blames the Jews for the death of Jesus. For hundreds of years in the Middle Ages, that theology had justified political realities which kept Jews subjugated in Christian society, Catholic society. So at last, in 1965, it sounds a little ridiculous to us that it took that long, but it happened. And so it changed how Catholic teaching was disseminated. It changed the prayer books. It changed the catechism language. They took out references, for example, on Good Friday to those perfidious Jews and things like that to take them out of the Catholic teaching. So why did I choose that reading for this morning, that very dark story of Jacob and Esau? Well, unfortunately, that story of the younger sibling overtaking the elder became a paradigm for how early Christianity understood its role in relation to Judaism. In other words, they were the younger sibling supplanting the older sibling, the Jews. And it was that supersessionism coupled with the theology of contempt that led to a lot of suffering throughout Western history. What this church document 50 years ago made clear is that from at least the Catholic perspective, God's covenant with the Jews is ongoing and unbreakable. And it led to a new era. John Paul II was, in a way, the culmination of that change. He was the first pope to visit Israel, the first pope to go into a synagogue. He became friendly with the rabbi of the great synagogue in Rome. And Pope Francis continues that legacy, having now just visited Israel. He prayed at the Western Wall. And that moment, you hear, I think you're supposed to sympathize with Esau in this story. I mean, even though Jacob is, at least from a Jewish perspective, our ancestor, our hero, you can't help but empathize with Esau's cry, do you have but one blessing? I think that's a challenge that confronts all of us today. Is there only one blessing? Is there only one true faith? I think all of us here probably agree. The answer to that is resoundingly no. But we have to make room for that. There's many blessings from God, however you define that. So that's why I say there's reason to hope. That after centuries of contempt, after centuries of suffering, there was a monumental breakthrough. So it can happen. It does happen that hearts that are hard can soften, that minds that are closed can open. Even though it's hard to have hope in the face of what's happening in Paris, as we mentioned, in Beirut, at the university in Kenya, where 150 people were killed this week, and all over the world. And yet I find hope in thousands of Muslims who are rallying around the world to say, not in our name. I find hope in a group of Muslim scholars who held a press conference to declare to ISIS and other extremist groups, you don't understand Islam. I find hope when people come together across faith, race, language, continent to condemn atrocities and to stand in solidarity. I'm grateful for these glimpses of humanity. I'm grateful that despite Esau's vow to kill Jacob, he's so resentful of the stealing of the birthright and blessing that he says, when we come together again, I will murder my brother. But when that reunion actually occurs, and Jacob is filled with dread at his approaching brother, Esau actually runs to him and embraces him, falls on his neck and kisses him, and they both weep. And Jacob says to this once upon a time sworn enemy, he says to Esau, to see your face is like seeing the face of God. So I'm grateful for the possibility that terror can turn into love, that as Nicholas said, we can swap love for hate. I'm grateful for those who seek the face of God even in their enemies. I am grateful for this community, for this gathering, for this partnership. I'm grateful for all of you, and I'm grateful for hope. Happy Thanksgiving, and may we all soon know peace.
So, hi, I'm Maya McDonough, and I was part of the homeless shelter cooking group. When Elaine and Rollin were planning this service, they wanted to find a way that the students could share together in gratitude. When they decided to make dinner for the Homeless Day Center, their vision was to have the children cook and hopefully a few adults to prepare the meal. Then a wonderful thing happened. Children came, families came, and elders came. The interfaith cooking experience turned into a multi-generational afternoon. 36 people created a meal, sang songs together, and had a discussion about homelessness in our valley with Dr. Vince Savage, who runs the Homeless Day Center. Many of us then visited the center, where we brought the food and distributed Halloween cards we had made to the recipients at the center. Some of us would like to share our experiences of that day and why we chose to participate in this activity. I was part of the cooking group for the homeless. I decided to join because Aspen is not known for its homelessness. It is not the first thing you think of when you think of Aspen. And I think that when cooking for dinner for the homeless would be a great experience. It was amazing to see how many people showed up to help. For people around the community and all different ages were inspired to make a difference in someone's day. When we walked up to the homeless shelter, the gratitude of the homeless made me realize how something so simple as dinner could make someone so happy. This was a great learning experience for me because I'm not such a great cook, and really eye-opening to the reality that even Aspen has homeless people. I had so much fun with everyone who came and very glad I made a difference in someone's day.
Hi, I'm Grace. I made a salad for all the homeless people. I decided to because when I was littler in Green Junction, I went to help a lot of people who were homeless, and I felt really good after that. So when I heard that we were helping people at the chapel, I decided, well, helping homeless people and making dinner for them, I decided to help because I would feel good again.
Hi, I'm Lori. My husband Dirk and I and my daughter Haley did this event with the chapel, and it was wonderful to do an interfaith event. We came for the purpose of doing a mitzvah, doing something good, but we learned a lot, and I think I'm echoing a few things that were said by these wonderful girls. But some of the learning takeaways were that, one, we didn't all just come to do something good. Some of us were there in pay it forward mode because some of us also shared our stories of our own hardships and how the community reached out to us, so we were then reaching out to our community, and that was a lovely part. And then my daughter made an observation when we went to the shelter after we presented the meal. We also had made some cards. The children made cards, and she wanted to share her observation.
So my observation was we had all the cards were in this plastic bag, and we handed the entire bag to one of the people at the homeless shelter, and he just kept on passing it down, and I saw one man take one out that I made with my mom, and he stuffed it in his pocket and he pressed it to his chest. So that just made me feel like I did something really nice, and it was just really moving to see that what good can do, what giving, it's better to give than to receive. So,
and never underestimate just one day of this sort of effort, the impact that it can make.
I'm Tim. I'm from Carbondale. My family, my wife and my two sons, also took part in the drive that day. And unfortunately, I have a sick one this morning. So instead of bringing that as a gift to you, we decided I would do this on my own. So, but a lot of it was a wonderful experience. I have my own backstory that makes me appreciate it quite a lot. And in light of everything that's happening in the world right now, yesterday, day before, tomorrow, I'm trying to teach my sons that going to feed the homeless is not an isolated act. It's not a thing that exists separate from all else. There was a gentleman yesterday or the day before in Beirut who threw himself on a bomb, and he died, and he saved hundreds of people. And I'm trying to teach my kids that feeding a guy who can't eat is tantamount to the same thing. And that wave goes out, and people need to know that there's good in the world from wherever it comes. That day, my kids asked me, Dad, why are we feeding the homeless. Why can't they eat? You know, all the litany of questions. And I just told them, I said, guys, well, more to the point, we didn't go up to the shelter. And that was a conscious decision on my part. And I am very happy that some did. My backstory tells me, for me, to have my kids help from a distance and do it purely for my kids. That's what I need to teach them, is to give without getting. Never think about that, because the giving is bigger than everything. You never know when you might be the one in need. So thank you.
May God bless you with discomfort at easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that you may live deep within your heart.
May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that you may work for justice, freedom, and peace.
May God bless you with tears to shed for those who suffer from pain, rejection, starvation, and war, so that you may reach out your hand to comfort them and to turn their pain to joy.
May God bless you with enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in this world, so that you can do what others claim cannot be done.
And we say together, and the blessing of God, who creates, redeems, and sanctifies, be upon you and remain with you this day and forevermore. Amen.
Amen.
There we are. Let's all hug together.